The snow fell thick and heavy, a curtain of white that swallowed the world. Jack Harper trudged through the drifts, his boots crunching softly, his breath puffing out in frosty clouds. The Montana winter was brutal this year, the kind that bit into your bones and made you question why anyone chose to live so far from civilization. Jack's cabin was a mile off, a faint glow in his mind's eye, promising warmth and solitude. At 32, he liked it that while alone, unbothered, just him and the quiet of the mountains. But tonight, something felt off. The air was too still, the silence too heavy, like the world was holding its breath. Jack stopped, his gloved hand shielding his eyes from the stinging snow. A faint shimmer caught his attention, not far off the trail, a strange, bluish glow pulsing weakly beneath a snowbank. His heart quickened. Could be a lost hiker's flare, he thought, or maybe some kids messing with glow sticks. But out here, in the dead of winter? He hesitated, then moved toward it, driven by a nagging sense of duty. The wind howled, urging him to turn back, but Jack wasn't the kind to ignore a mystery. As he knelt by the snowbank, brushing away the powdery snow, his breath caught. Two figures lay huddled together, half buried, their forms delicate and strange. They weren't human. Their skin shimmered like polished opal, catching the moonlight in soft, iridescent waves. Their eyes were closed, long lashes dusted with frost, and their breath came in shallow, trembling wisps. Alien, Jack thought, the word sharp and surreal in his mind. He'd heard stories everyone had of ships crashing in remote places, of beings from the stars. But this was real. They were sisters, he guessed. Their features nearly identical, high cheekbones, delicate noses, and hair like spun silver, tangled with ice. They wore thin, metallic suits that looked more like art than clothing. But the fabric was torn, useless against the cold. Jack's hand shook as he checked for pulses, his fingers clumsy through his gloves. They were alive, but barely. Freezing, dying. "Hey," he whispered, his voice soft, as if he might scare them away. "Can you hear me? I'm gonna get you out of here." No response. Their faces were peaceful, almost serene, but their lips were blue, their bodies trembling faintly. Jack didn't think twice. He scooped the smaller one into his arms as she was light, too light, like a bird, and draped his coat over the other. With a grunt, he lifted her too, staggering under the weight but fueled by adrenaline. The cabin wasn't far. He could make it. The trek back was slow, the snow fighting him every step. Jack's mind raced. Who were they? Why were they here? The glow from their suits had faded, but their skin still shimmered faintly, casting soft light on the snow. He glanced down at the sister in his arms, her head resting against his chest. She looked almost human, but not quite. Her eyes, even closed, seemed too large, her fingers too long. Jack pushed the thoughts away. Questions could wait. They needed warmth, and fast. Inside the cabin, the fire crackled in the hearth, casting golden light across the rough wooden walls. Jack laid the sisters on a pile of blankets near the fire, their bodies still shivering. He piled more blankets over them, then stoked the flames higher, the heat washing over his chilled skin. The cabin smelled of pine and smoke, a comforting contrast to the sterile cold outside. Jack knelt beside them, watching their faces. The smaller one stirred first, her eyes fluttering open, huge, luminous eyes, the color of twilight, deep and endless. "I'm Jack," he said gently, keeping his voice low. "You're safe now. You're in my cabin." She blinked, her gaze unfocused, then turned to her sister, who was still unconscious. A soft, melodic sound escaped her lips, a language Jack couldn't understand, but it carried fear, urgency. She reached for her sister's hand, clutching it tightly. "Hey, it's okay," Jack said, placing a hand on her shoulder. Her skin was cool, but warming. "She's gonna be okay." "You both are." He hoped he sounded convincing. The sister nodded faintly, as if she understood, and whispered something. Her voice was like music, soft and flowing, but the words were alien. Jack offered a small smile. "Rest. I'll get you some water." Over the next hours, Jack tended to them. He warmed water, mixed it with a little honey, and helped the conscious sister sip it. Her name, she managed to convey through halting gestures, was Lara. Her sister was Ve. They were from a broken bar somewhere else. She pointed upward, her eyes wide, And Jack understood. The stars, a ship, maybe, crashed nearby. He didn't press for details, they were too weak, and he was no interrogator. He just wanted them to live. By morning, Vey woke too, her eyes matching Lyra's, but sharper, more guarded. She spoke less, her gaze flicking between Jack and the door, like she expected danger. Jack kept his movements slow, deliberate, offering them soup he'd heated over the fire. They ate hesitantly, their long fingers trembling around the spoons. Jack watched, a strange warmth blooming in his chest. He'd lived alone for years, content with his books and his solitude. But now, with these two strange beings in his home, the cabin felt a broken bar full, alive. Days passed, and the sisters grew stronger. Their suits, Jack learned, were meant to regulate their bodies, but they'd been damaged in whatever accident brought them here. Lyra was the talkative one, her broken English improving daily as she mimicked Jack's words. Vey was quieter, watchful, but her eyes softened when Jack brought them blankets or food. They were grateful, their gestures small but heartful. To a touch on his arm, a shy smile. Jack found himself smiling back, his guarded heart cracking open just a bit. One night, as the fire burned low, Lyra sat close to Jack, her knees drawn up under a blanket. Vey was asleep, her breathing steady. "Jack," Lyra said, her voice careful, "we broken bar stay?" She gestured to herself and Vey, then to the cabin. Jack frowned, unsure. "You want to stay here?" "With me?" Lyra nodded, her eyes earnest. "Safe, warm, you a broken bar good." She hesitated, then touched her chest, then his. "Family." Jack's breath hitched. Family. The word felt foreign, heavy. He'd lost his parents young, had no siblings, no ties. The idea of these alien sisters, so strange yet so familiar in their need, calling him family, it stirred something deep. But before he could answer, Vey's voice cut through the quiet. "We marry," she said, awake now, her tone firm. "Both. You, us." Jack froze, his face heating. "Marry? You mean a broken bar, both of you?" "To me?" He laughed, nervous, thinking it was a misunderstanding. But Vey's eyes were serious. Lyra's hopeful. They explained, haltingly, that in their culture, bonds were formed through care, through saving a life. Jack had saved them. To them, that meant a vow, a union. They saw him as their protector, their home. The room felt smaller, the air charged. Jack stood, pacing to the window, where snow still fell softly outside. Marriage? He wasn't that kind of monoromantic, settled. He liked his quiet life, his independence. But as he glanced back at Lyra and Vey, their faces lit by the fire, he saw something new. Trust, need, a connection that went beyond words or worlds. They weren't asking for love, not yet, just a promise to stay, to belong. The tension grew over the next days. Jack wrestled with their proposal, his mind a tangle of doubt and curiosity. He taught them more English, showed them how to chop wood, how to cook simple meals. They laughed together, their voices blending with the crackle of the fire. Lyra's curiosity was endless as she touched the rough walls, marvel at the texture of a wool blanket. Vey was practical, learning fast, her hand steady as she helped Jack repair a broken chair. They fit here, somehow, in his small world. One evening, as a storm raged outside, Jack found the twist he hadn't expected. Lyra showed him a small device, hidden in her suit, a tracker, she explained, her voice trembling. Their people were coming, not to rescue, but to reclaim. Their ship's crash wasn't an accident. They'd fled, seeking freedom from a rigid society that bound them to roles they didn't want. If their people found them, they'd be taken back, separated, forced into lives they feared. Jack's heart sank. He looked at Vey, her jaw tight, and Lyra, her eyes pleading. "We stay," Lyra whispered. "With you, please." Vey nodded, her hand brushing Jack's. "You a broken bar, our home." The choice wasn't easy, but it was clear. Jack hid the tracker, smashing it under his boot in the snow. He'd protect them, not because of some alien vow, but because they'd become part of his world. The cabin, once a refuge for one, now held three. He didn't call it marriage, not yet, but he called it something just as real, a promise. Weeks later, the snow eased, and spring's first green peeked through the frost. Jack, Lyra, and Vey sat by the fire, the sisters' laughter filling the air as Jack taught them a card game. The cabin felt warmer, not just from the fire, but from them. Jack looked at them, their shimmering skin no longer strange, their eyes no longer alien. They were Lyra and Ve, his family. He realized, as the firelight danced, that he'd been wrong about solitude. It wasn't the absence of people that made a home, it was the presence of those who chose you, and who you chose back. The stars outside sparkled, vast and unknowable, but here, in this small cabin, Jack had found something brighter, a light worth keeping, and so, they stayed together. If you ever find yourself in the Montana mountains, look for a cabin with a warm glow. You might hear laughter, see three shadows by the fire, and if you're lucky, you'll feel it too, with the quiet strength of a bond that crosses worlds.